What's going on, guys? You're listening to the Davis F. Haas podcast in the studio, solo today. Me and Zach. I asked Zach before we recorded this podcast what would be the number one podcast he would listen to if he could listen to any podcast in the world, and put him on the spot. He couldn't come up with an answer, but so then I just tuned into, what answer I think most people would be looking for, and the one that came to me is about checking the box of like the money thing. This isn't for Zach. This is just for what I think I would have want to listen to back in the day, is like checking the box of money and what comes along with that. And so, if you follow any of my content, you've listened to the stuff I release. A lot of what I talked about is it's not the goal you're after. It's not the money. It's about how it's going to make you feel. And part of achieving that goal is learning how to feel that way now before you achieve it. But that is ultimately what spiritual growth is all about. It's about recognizing that you don't need to add anything out there in order to achieve whatever it is that you're searching for. And most people that make a bunch of money will say to you that it didn't change them one bit. And I've experienced this on my own, right? I remember when I was in insane debt, like part of my journey was about hitting like this rock bottom of being like so in debt. I actually got my car repossessed at one point. And I remember like that was like this such a low moment. And I had all these businesses. I had expanded and opened up a bunch of different nightclubs and restaurants. And it was just like I had spread myself too thin, and I was like about $350,000 in debt to the government, who is like the government. It's like the mob. They'll like just come after you with everything they got. And this was like my rock bottom moment. And I remember being like, oh my God, like I've been in business my whole life. And I think I was in my early 30s at this time. I've been in business my whole life since I was 16 years old. I've been running my own companies. And here I am, 20 something years later, and I'm still in the grind, and I'm still struggling. And I'm working long hours, probably more than the regular 9-to-5 person is, and I'm still behind, and I'm actually worse than behind. I'm $350,000 in debt. And actually, what was happening to me at that point too is I was seeing my friends who took the normal road. They went and got the job, and they had all moved up the corporate ladder in this time and moved into positions like high up within their corporation or their position. I had friends that were cops that were now becoming sergeants or moving to the SWAT team, and one of my best friends is an engineer, and he shifted jobs a few times and got all these pay raises. And here I am, early 30s, and just at like this complete low point. And it was like, kind of like, what the fuck is wrong? And so that moment of like, what am I doing wrong was the turning point, because I finally started having the courage to look within and say, okay, whatever I've been doing up until this point isn't a result of anybody out there. It's all my doing. And this was this moment of radical responsibility, and I need to do something different. And so for me, that realization was what led me to quit drinking, because I recognized that was one of the blocks that was blocking me from achieving my maximum potential. But ultimately, what I realized for my journey was a little bit different, because I actually did begin feeling how I wanted to feel by achieving wealth. So my whole entire life, I wanted to get rich so that I could be happy. Like that was it. I believed at a subconscious level, because I was unaware of all this stuff, that if I made money, I would be happy. I would be living the life of luxury. I would be driving a nice car, taking nice vacations. And probably at that time, I was in my mindset of I would get all the girls. And that was everything that I desired. From a super young age, it was installed in me. Like, I remember I had a poster as a kid of a Lamborghini Countach in my bedroom. It was like a laminated poster. This is before posters were readily available. And it was like, that was the dream. Get the Lamborghini Countach. That's all I cared about, right? And so my whole entire life had been dictated by this drive and this desire to make money. But the funny thing was, no matter how hard I worked or how many hours I put in or how much I grinded, I just never seemed to move into this place where the money was just like flowing in like I felt like it was for people that were wealthy. And so I went to work to find out, well, what was missing, what was going on. And so through that process, I started tuning into this idea that, okay, I now made this awareness that money would buy me happiness. And so the question I had to start asking myself would be like, well, why am I not happy right now? And so there's a saying out there that, everyone says that money can't buy you happiness, but everyone also says, yeah, well, let me find out for myself. Right. And it's like, and that's what this podcast is about. It's like, it's about checking that box of wealth, because I think a lot of people, in order to move to higher states of consciousness, if they are trapped in this belief that they need to become rich or become wealthy, then it will be a block for them moving to higher states of consciousness. So as a coach, if I have someone that their primary goal is to make money, I better help them achieve that primary goal, right? Because without them achieving that primary goal, they will just be forever clouded by the desire to get ahead. And so I thought I would make a podcast about, okay, well, how do we check that box? Because the one thing I can tell you for certain is that once you check it, you will immediately create a new box. And this is the thing about desire, is that it is insatiable, meaning no matter how many times you fulfill that desire, you will always find something new to desire. And so if we stay in this cycle of, okay, I have the desire for the supercar, and you get the supercar, then you have a desire for a better supercar, and then you keep moving in this. It's like you're living this life where you feel like you can never just lean back, relax, and enjoy life. And so people that achieve wealth usually like really quickly, like actors, athletes, these types of people, where all of a sudden one day they're kind of like poor, and then they're like, oh, they're into a bunch of wealth. These are the people that usually get the most fucked up about it, because it's like they thought that fame, fortune would change who they are. But when they realize is that now that they've achieved that thing, they're not changed at all. And I can attest to this, because I went from being in the grips of debt to the government again. And so I remember saying to my wife when we were met, and this is when I started turning everything around, I said, all I got to do is just get out of debt, and I'm going to dance in the streets. And so I got out of debt, and I didn't dance in the streets. And then I said, all I want is $10,000 in my bank, and then I'm going to dance. Got 10,000, and I didn't dance in the streets. And all I want is 100,000 in my bank, and then I'm going to dance in the streets. And I got the 100K in my bank, and then I didn't do it. And she actually kind of like called me out, and she was like, well, when are you ever going to be happy? And there's a famous line in the movie Founder when his wife is saying like, when is it ever going to be enough? And or something along those lines. And he says, never. And that is like this powerful line, because it's kind of like, yeah, I'm going to keep going forever. But like, it's exhausting, right? And so this podcast isn't about like not going after what it is that you desire or what you want, but it's about understanding why you want it. And so that you can remove yourself from the outcome and just get attached to the process of doing what you love to do. And if the money comes, or if the thing that you want comes, then great. And if it doesn't, also great. And so this is the work that I ended up doing, and I was kind of doing it unconsciously. I didn't even really know what I was doing when I was doing this work, but I had made this recognition that I wanted money for happiness, which then led me to the recognition that I wasn't happy right now. And now I look back on that era of my life, and I'm like, oh my God, like I was such a miserable fuck. Like I just would not allow myself to be happy, and just thinking about like the relationships that I lost or never allowed to flourish because I was so just miserable all the time. And it was all about that I didn't believe I could be happy until I got to that goal, right? And so it was completely backwards. And so money doesn't buy you money. Doesn't bring you happiness, but happiness will bring you money. And this is what I kind of like unconsciously stumbled upon. So I start doing the work, and I start recognizing that my desire for money is the thing that's blocking me from getting money. And now this is like a point of contention with people, because you can achieve money with desire. You can. It's just like, if you're just constantly like if all you're thinking about is how to make money, and you can 100% do that, right? In this podcast, I am going to go into how to make money. So, because I do believe you have to check this box. So with desire, you can get there, but it's going to be a grind. And if you haven't solved the desire portion of this whole entire thing, then what's happens is once you get to the goal, you're not going to change. Nothing's going to be different. And you're going to find yourself just looking at the next mountaintop and desiring that as well, and being in the exact same state where my life isn't good enough until I get to that peak now. And this is what I want. This is the cycle of the trap that I want to pull you out of. I don't want to block you from having all the money in the world or whatever it is that you want. I don't want to block you at all, but I want you to recognize that it's like that thing will not change you whatsoever. And so if we do the work now to create the change inside, then when you get there, yeah, you can look at another mountaintop, but it won't be from this place of having to. You will already be the state of consciousness that you want to be. So as I started doing this, I'm like, okay, desire is blocking me. And why is desire blocking me? Because if I'm constantly holding in mind that I want more money, what I'm essentially telling myself is that I don't have any money. And so what you hold in mind tends to manifest. So the more I desired money, the more I continue to tell myself I didn't have any money, and the more having no money continued to manifest in my life. And it did so for about 20 something years, where I never broke the cycle of like being broke, essentially, right? And so, yeah, maybe my lifestyle increased a little bit. I could go on some vacations or wherever, that kind of thing, but it never really got out of that cycle of just not having enough. That's the best way to sum it up, I think. So I recognized, okay, because I was doing this work, I got to step out of desire. And when I made that recognition, that's when it kind of clicked for me that I wasn't allowing myself to be happy, and this desire was the thing that was stealing my happiness. So I basically just tuned in and said, well, what is it? Why do I desire money so much? And this is when I was brought back to these moments of shame in my life, where I was embarrassed for the house I lived in, the cars I drove. I had the incident where I've talked about many times about being the smelly kid. And in that meditation, I recognized that everything that I had ever done my whole entire life was all to never re-experience that pain ever again. And so Dave, the entrepreneur, was born out of a need to protect myself from that pain. And so once I made that awareness, I could then tune into that pain, allow myself to reconnect to those really embarrassing and really shameful moments. And I could feel that emotion fully. And when I did that, I was free. And the freedom from that pain, or the being able to sit in the pain and recognizing that I was okay, basically dropped my desire. And so now what happened was, because I was no longer in the state of just wanting all of the time, I started just becoming happier. I started enjoying life because my happiness was no longer attached to that outcome. I could be happy right now in this moment. And so as I started letting the joy flow in, as I just started laughing the way I used to laugh when I would be drunk or when I was a little kid, that's when things began to really shift, when money began to really flow into my life. And that's when I had the recognition, to go from $350K in debt and to making $350K a year in like a 8-year window was like quite the turnaround. But that's when I had the recognition that it didn't change me whatsoever. And I still had to keep going and kind of prove it a little bit more to myself. I had to put some more money in the bank, and we made a move to a bigger house. And then eventually when I sold Treehouse, which is just recently, I went out and bought the supercar. I bought the Audi R8, and that supercar was the thing that was going to be the thing that, finally was going to be the thing that allowed me to have the happiness. And that car was great for about 2 months. And now all I see it at that car as is income being left on the table that could be put into action for me in order to make money. And this was like, man, this is such a game-changing realization. And that's why I think it's so important for people to actually check the box of money, because once you get to the place, or I think this is the place that I'm at, where it's like, I don't really want anything. Sure, would I live in a bigger house? Yeah, sure, I would. I would live in a bigger house that had a 3-car garage and a gym indoors, and not in my garage, a bigger yard for the dogs and the kids to play. But it's like, I don't need it, right? Could I have a nice, beautiful sailboat where I could race all the time? Yeah, but it's like, meh, there's something else to take care of, And so it's like, you get to this place where you don't want anything. And that is such an amazing place to be, because now what you can end up doing is you can start looking at money as an asset that will, an asset that will bring you more money. And so this is let's say if we're talking about how to check the money box, because I want the people that are listening to this to get to the state that I got to where I don't need anything anymore. Like I don't want anything. I don't even want to really travel. Like I will, but it's like I don't even really care about travel. I don't need to even experience anything. I don't need to be entertained anymore. Like this is what the average people of the world are obsessed with, right? Experience, entertainment, materialistic items, the big house, and I'm completely removed from that. And because of that, my wealth is going to just skyrocket, because I no longer need to buy the car to prove that I'm worthy, right? I no longer need to post a picture in front of the Eiffel Tower, which I've done before. I no longer need to post in front of the Eiffel Tower to show that, I'm living my best life. Like I just am those things, right? And so I feel like I'm enough. I feel like that I am living my best life, and it's only getting better. So I don't need to go out there and show the world or prove or whatever that may be. Whatever that driver was, I don't need to do it anymore. And that's what I want you to get to by checking the box of money. So let's talk about how to check the box of money. Well, the first step is to understand how money will make you feel. And I'm going to get more practical here, so don't worry about it. How is money going to make you feel? So just tune into what that answer is. Maybe it's freedom, maybe it's respected, whatever it may be. And then do the work to ask yourself, well, why don't you feel that way now? So let me give you my quick little own example. So I believed money was going to buy me happiness. I tuned into the fact that it was the shame that I was associated with. And so as a kid, I was super happy. Then things began happening to me, and I began to get put into a shell, right? I believed that making money was going to break me out of that shell, and I was going to be my true self again, which was happy. So all of the states of consciousness that you seek, freedom, respect, joy, whatever it may be, they're already available to you. You once had them, but for some reason you lost them. This is the question I want you to start digging into is, well, why did you lose it? Because you had it once before. So where in your life did you lose it? And once you start connecting to those moments in life, you can start connecting to the pain. You can start dealing with the pain through the letting go process. If you don't know how to let go, you can join my Conscious Collective Facebook group. There's a letting go meditation in there. I walk you through the process of that. But just tune into how to break free of this emotion that is limiting you. So now that you've done that, you've really stepped out from the pact, because now you're going to start moving to allowing yourself to already feel the way you want to feel by achieving X. And that is actually what manifestation is all about. It's about feeling it before you achieve it. But that is so much easier said than done, because the mind is just been spewing information. Like my mind, every thought I had was about making money. And so without the recognition that those thoughts were really about the fact that I didn't have money, right? And so the reality of not having money continued to manifest in my life. So if you can understand what the mind is telling you, right? So this would be, I guess, step 2 is like, where are your thoughts focused most? And if it's focused on getting more money, then what you're telling yourself over and over again is that you don't have money. You connect that with how money will make you feel once you get there. You can start tuning into why you don't feel that way now. You combine these two elements and you become like a super manifester, because you're reducing the thoughts of I don't have money, for example. They're beginning to lessen because you're bringing awareness to what they are really telling you. And then you're tuning into why you're not happy now, or whatever that may be, why you're not respected or loved or whatever it may be. And then because you start healing from that, you start feeling happier. You start feeling the way you want to feel. You're reducing the mind telling you constantly all the time that you don't have enough. You're increasing the good vibes, because you're letting go of the negative shit that's blocking you from. And so now you start just feeling happier. You just start feeling more confident. And because of that, the money begins to flow. Like things that you like basically turn on the faucet to money, right? The second thing, the third, I guess this is the third thing, and this is where we're going to get more practical, but like those two would be where I would start, because they're the most critical, right? And that's the ultimate understanding of money, is that is that I walk people through this process. I say, imagine you won $100 million in the lottery, and I make them go through every single thing that they would do. I say, where would you travel? What car would you buy? What house would you live in? Name the places that you would travel. And I just make them do everything. And this tool is designed to get them connected to their purpose. Like, what is it you want to do after all of your material needs have been met? Your basic and material needs have been met. And so that allows them to align with their purpose. But then as I keep walking them down that road and they finally get connected to what they might want to do that would be fun for them and they would enjoy, as I keep walking down that road, then I keep saying, okay, and then what? And what will you do next? And what will you do now that you've created a business around the thing that you love? I said, what would you do next? And then eventually they land on that they would help people. And the reverse is really true. If you just help people first, then all of the other things will just flow into your life. But no one really wants to do that, right? Everyone wants to get their own needs met and then they help people. And that exercise is a great example. It's like they list out all of the things that they would do, right? And then finally they land on helping people. So if you just focus on helping people, then you're going to make all the money you ever needed. So that would be like the third step is like, okay, I want to help people. And how do you turn that into your daily life if you have a job? We just focus on helping your boss. You focus on helping your coworkers. You be a helpful person. And because of that, you're going to move up. You're going to move up through the corporate ladder. You focus on going the extra mile for people, just really being helpful, less selfish. And if you focus on that, it's like it's not going to go unnoticed. So I've talked about this a lot. If you put this in respect to business, it's like, well, what problem can you solve for people, right? And so there are all kinds of ways to solve problems. There are all kinds of problems out there. You could just look at what it is people need. The first company I ever started was Squeaky Clean Window Washing, which is solving the problem that people needed their windows washed and they didn't want to climb up 3 stories on a ladder. I was the guy that did that for them, right? And so I solved a problem that they had. They couldn't get their windows cleaned because they were too high and they didn't want to climb the ladder. And I solved the problem. And I did so in a friendly, helpful way. And because of that, I became uber successful. So within that company. And so the next thing is I think that you have to do is you have to create a business. And whether that be, now you can move up the corporate ladder and make all the money you want, but what you do with that money will be secondary. So let's just talk about you have a job. Now you've become super helpful within your job and you're making more money than you've ever made. What the people that are wealthy do is they don't buy things, they buy assets. And if you've ever read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, like he kind of like goes into huge detail about this, but like that car that I bought is a perfect example. It's like that car was $150,000. And so for that $150,000 that I had, right, that could have been something that I put into even something as simple as a mutual fund or an index fund is where I usually put my money. That $150,000 returning, 8% a year would make me $10,000 a year, right? If you want to look even deeper, it's like that $150,000 could have bought me down payments on 2 or 3 rental properties, right? The $150,000 could have bought me 3 trailers or RVs that I could have rented out, to other people and made money. So it's like you turn your cash into something that is going to make you more cash. You make your money work for you. And everyone's heard that, but it's like, it just goes in one ear and out the other because people don't really understand it. But it's like, instead of buying an Audi R8 like I did, you take that money and you make it go to work for you in some way, shape, or form. Another way that a lot of really wealthy people are making their money go to work for them is they're private lending it. They're lending it out at 12, 13% interest. So if you got $100,000, you're making $13,000 a year, right? From that $100,000 on at 13% interest. So this is what you want to do is when you make money, especially if you have a job, you want to take that money and you want to save it until you can put it into a place where it is going to turn into something that makes you money. And now once you say, let's say, for example, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to, let's use the RV example. I'm going to buy an RV and I'm going to rent it out. Well, now you have a business, right? And now that you have a business, that business has expenses. So all of the things that would typically, be just regular day-to-day expenses can now flow through that business. And so this helps you reduce the amount of tax that you pay, right? Once you have a business, you begin writing off the normal stuff. Like I have an office at my house, and legally you're allowed to write off a portion of your home, your home heat, your AC, your internet, all of that can now be written off. So your normal expenses that normally would be like you receive income and then you pay your expenses and whatever left over you have savings. Now it's flowing the other way. You have income, it flows into your business. You pay your expenses out of that business, and then you pay the taxes on what's left, if that makes sense. So that would be the second step so step one is turn your money into make your money work for you. Step two is start a business with that money working for you in some way, shape, or form. And there's a bunch of ways to do this. You could create a life insurance policy that you can borrow from. You can buy a business. You can buy a rental property. You can put money into mutual funds, whatever it is that you want to do. But basically, you're going to turn that money into something that creates some sort of business. So now you are making your money work for you. You are going to delay buying anything. My uncle told me this years ago. He said the reason people stay stuck is because the second they start making more money, they improve their lifestyle, right? He gave me an example back in the day. He says two guys are making 50 grand a year. They both drive used cars. They both live in 1-bedroom apartments, and they both go out for dinner once a week. One guy gets a raise and he's making 100K a year. He goes out, he buys a house, he buys a brand new car, and he goes out for dinner 3 nights a week. A few months later, 50K buddy comes and says, hey, he's like, you're making more money now. Do you think you could lend me $1,000? I'm kind of behind on my bills. And the guy making $100,000 a year says, no, I can't. Right? And it's because he's increased his lifestyle, but he's just went out and bought things. I'm not saying you can't buy things, but you just have to delay the buy. So for example, I could have went out and bought the Audi R8 by taking that $150,000, investing into an asset that cash flowed me $5,000 a month, let's say. That $5,000 a month then turned into the Audi R8 payment. All right. So we want to delay the material stuff and then use the flow of our money to buy the material stuff later. But first we want to get our money working for us. So you're going the extra mile, you're making more money. You're now turning your money into a money maker as well. So the money is working for you. That's what we mean. You could buy a business, you could do whatever. And then the final step, I would say, and this is a piece of the puzzle that I think I missed in business for so long, is this would be more for the business person, is you have to learn how to sell whatever it is that you're offering. And like, that is like, seems like the most basic advice on earth, but it's like, what is really involved in selling? So like, I was kind of doing this unconsciously back in the day at Treehouse. Like I would be on the street telling people, come to Treehouse, but it was all really out of that desire. Like, I don't want to be poor, and the fear of going broke and all that stuff that was really driving that. It wasn't so intentional about like, my goal is to put bodies through that door. And so if you have a business, and what happens with most entrepreneurs is they get so wrapped up in running the business that they never step back to actually like to maximize the potential of that business through marketing. It's like, if you listen to all of these guys, all of these big guys like Hormozi and Gary Vee and all these guys, they're all talking about selling. And most people hear the word selling and they get completely turned off, but our entire life is about selling. If you have a job, you're selling yourself as like a good employee, right? If you have a business, you have to learn how to sell what it is that you are offering. So if you are not sitting down and asking yourself the question, how are we going to put more people through our door, or how are we going to sell more of what it is that we offer, and not coming up with a strategy on how to do that and testing that strategy over and over, because here's the thing, once you decide that you need to learn how to sell it, it's the best way to learn how to sell it is to put it into action. So for example, like let's look at me. I have recently reopened the doors to my one-on-one coaching, and I'm like, okay, I got to start learning how to sell my one-on-one coaching again. And so my current process is I'm going to be running Facebook ads. That's going to be like a lead magnet where people are basically coming to a training where they just basically get to know me. And then once they get to know me, I'm going to put them into an email sequence where eventually it will probably lead to them getting on a call with me, hopefully, right? And so like that is my current process that I am testing. And guess what? I'm probably going to launch it. It's probably going to fail. I'm probably not going to be able to get people on calls. So then I'm going to keep tweaking, but you have to be in the game of selling. And, at Lungo Vita, it's like I opened up Lungo Vita, and because of the place that Lungo Vita was created, it created a lot of natural momentum. And that's what I had done at Treehouse as well. We had done, I should say, at Treehouse was we created the $2.50 drink special. It was actually $2 back in the day. It's $2 drink special. Now it's, I think, $3. And so that marketing was built in. So people naturally just came, but there was no real like intentional, like, how are we going to get people through this door? Yeah, I ran some Facebook. I did some Facebook events, and I would call friends and do all that kind of stuff. And that is part of the marketing, but we want to be like really intentional about how we are going to tell people about what we have and how we're going to get them to buy it. I know it sounds so simple, but most business owners are missing this one key component. It's like, you could name me any business right now locally, and I can guarantee you that they haven't put a lot of intentional thought into how they're actually going to sell this thing. And when you step into the world of selling, then you realize, oh my God, like this is the piece of the puzzle I was missing. So now, as you get into the selling, the next step is to sell as much as you possibly can. And once you've solved the selling equation, then everything else is easy. Everything else is just dollars and cents and making sure that the cost makes sense, and then managing the employees so that you can scale. And that's basically it. You've basically done it, right? But number one, always, and I've always called it put people through the door, because that's what it was for the restaurant business. But it's like, how do you get customers, right? And how do you get them to buy? And once you've solved that, you've done it. You've made it. You've checked the box, right? And so this is essentially the process that I would go through to check that box of wealth. And I'm hoping that that is practical enough so that you can just take this, what I've said here, and is like, just put it into action. And if you have any comments or you have any questions, then just post them below here and I'll get back to you, because like, I want to sell you. And that's basically what it comes down to, is like, what is the process of selling? And so, not that I'm going to put you on a sales call, but I'm going to get you to know me and like me and trust me, and then eventually maybe you might want to work with me. And that is the ultimate goal, is to create a sales system where people are just asking you how to buy your product, right? The word sell, I think, scares a lot of people, but it ultimately is sales, whether you have created this space and this demand where people are asking you to work with you, or you've intentionally created a system to get people on a sales call and then sell them, or to get people to come through your doors so you can show them your product, right? And so it's like, what are you doing to get people through the door? If you haven't solved for that, you're going to remain stuck. And that's where 80% of your focus should be if you're a business person. I think that sums it up. This is how you check the box of wealth. And the reason I want you to do this is so that you can recognize that money won't change you. The Audi R8, Lamborghini won't change who you are. And then if you get there, then you can step out of wanting completely. And once you step out of wanting completely, the state of peace is just around the corner. And that is the be all end all to me, right? Just to be in this complete state of flow and ease, where everything just feels easy and effortless. And you're there all the time. I experience glimpses and moments of it, but I'm not constantly in the state of even joy, for example. And so that's where I want to be all the time. I want to be drunk without the drug. I'll leave it there. Thanks for taking the time to listen. If you got any value whatsoever, just do me a favor and click that subscribe button. Give me a review too. A review's super help as well. And maybe even send this podcast to a friend. Thanks for taking the time to listen. See you again next Sunday.